truly believe this. Let's just make no mistake on this, none. This display is having the effect, whereas Canadians are seeing this free trade is not about democracy. This is about oppression.
Waiting for everyone to get their place. 34 people to take their seats.
Yep.
Ah, yes.
Mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, signoras y signores, le Premier ministre du Canada, le très honorable Jean Chrétien, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honorable Jean Chrétien, el Primer Ministro de Canada, el muy honorable Jean Chrétien, le Primer Ministro du Canada, Su Excelencia Señor Jean Chrétien.
Chers collègues,
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all Canadians, I am pleased to welcome you to Quebec City for the third Summit of the Americas. We are meeting in one of Canada's most beautiful cities, a historic site, the cradle of the Francophonie of the Americas, a cosmopolitan city whose heart beats in rhythm with the cultures of the world. We are here as elected representatives of our respective countries, countries united by geography, brought closer by history, and now forming one of the greatest families in the world. A family rich in its diversity, proud of its history, aware of its origins, and ready to begin its journey into the future in a spirit of cooperation, openness, and respect. Our Gran Familia, our great family, has changed much since Canada joined the Organization of American States more than 10 years ago. Our hemisphere has embraced a vision for the future based on common values and objectives, strengthening democracy, protecting human rights, promoting human security, creating prosperity, and providing all the hemisphere's citizens a chance to realize their full potential. And we have all become equal partners in the pursuit of these objectives. Of course, each country of the hemisphere has its own priorities and interests, its policies and its concerns. Each has its own identity, an identity whose value we must respect and enhance if we would preserve the rich diversity characteristic of the Americas. But beyond our uniqueness, we are very much aware of the chance we have to achieve extraordinary progress if we work together for the well-being of all our peoples, all our citizens. It is this possibility that is the foundation of the summit process. I would like to expand on this question because there is a very basic reality that too many have a tendency to forget. All our efforts to bring the nations of the Americas closer together are founded on the unquestionable fact that the vast majority of the citizens of our hemisphere want to be governed by democratic institutions. They want judicial systems that guarantee their rights and that give them, if needed, a fair and impartial trial. They want to earn a dignified living with a good job that allows them to make full use of their talents. And they want to benefit from the prosperity that comes from free markets and stable financial systems. The summit, like the two that came before it, is the instrument that we have chosen as democratically elected representatives to respond to the call of our citizens. And I am firmly convinced that it is the means best suited to achieve our goals. My dear friends, democracy and economic integration are the key words of this summit. First, I would like to say a few words about the economic integration. Like all our initiatives, the creation of a free trade area is not an end in itself. It is a means, a tool for growth that will allow us to promote the closer, more dynamic economic relations among the nations of the Americas. In time, it will assure a higher standard of living and a better quality of life for all peoples in the hemisphere. And we can all understand the desire of our citizens to be informed about our undertakings. This is not only normal, but it seems to me that it is healthy for democracy. That is why we made the collective decision 2 weeks ago to make public the negotiating text for the free trade area. I am convinced that this gesture will clear up any misunderstandings and refute baseless criticisms about a process whose only goal is to improve the quality of life of our people, of all our people.
My friends, economic integration is only one pillar of our economic edifice. After all, prosperity has no meaning if our citizens are not free, if they are not equal before the law, or if they cannot make use of the opportunities open to them. Our priorities echo this belief. From the outset, we have focused on a global action plan of cooperation to reduce poverty, protect the environment, promote the adoption of labor standards, and encourage corporate social responsibility. We are working together to reinforce democracy, to broaden access to education and health care, to promote the equality of men and women, cultural diversity, and dialogue with indigenous peoples. In fact, the leaders of the 40 million indigenous peoples of our hemisphere have held historic meetings to find solutions to their own unique challenges. In Guatemala and in Ottawa last month during the summit of the indigenous people of the Americas. And we must listen carefully to their concerns. There is no doubt that we are active in many areas, but taken together, they form a global, coherent, and balanced strategy to strengthen the autonomy of our citizens, especially those who have often been left out in our societies, among the women, youth, seniors, and people with disabilities. In the view of Canada, this includes taking measures to reduce, without delay, the gaps that have been created by the information revolution. New communications technologies are giving all the nations of the Americas access to tools they can use to transmit knowledge, do business, increase understanding among peoples, and stimulate human development. The summit gives us a chance to reflect on the means we have available to assist the Americas adapt to the transformations caused by the emergence of new technologies, and to put these technologies to work in support of the action plan that we will adopt. My friends, in a few hours, we'll begin the work of the third summit of the Americas. And at the outset, I am convinced that we will be able to respond to the expectations and priorities of our citizens. Why? Because our summit agenda has been prepared in consultation with representatives of all sectors of civil society. It has also been enriched by the contribution of those who took part in the first summit of the indigenous peoples of the Americas and discussed during the first meeting of the Inter-Parliamentary Forum of the Americas. All of these initiatives and consultations reflect our desire to be open and transparent, our resolve to reach out to those who have concerns about our initiatives, and to convince them that our plans are well-funded. In a democracy, peaceful protest and peaceful demonstration are fundamental rights. I welcome those who have come to Quebec City to make known their views on how best to advance the social and economic interests of our fellow citizens. But violence and provocation is unacceptable in a democracy. The type of behavior that we have seen outside this afternoon by small groups of extremists is contrary to the democratic principle we all hold dear. To these people do not represent the vast majority of those who have come to Quebec City peacefully to express legitimate concerns. En démocratie, le droit de manifester.
A democracy, the right to demonstrate is a fundamental freedom, and those who have come to Quebec City to make their views known on the means, the best means in order to make our societies move forward on the economic and social level are very welcome to the city. But violence and provocation are unacceptable in a democracy. This type of behavior that we have witnessed here this afternoon that was carried out by a small group of extremists is contrary to all democratic principles that are so dear to us. These individuals, these people, do not represent the vast majority of those who have come to Quebec City in order to express peacefully and calmly their legitimate concerns.
We have a lot of work to do in the next 2 days if we are to build on the progress that has been made by our ministers and officials in the past few months. I am convinced that on Sunday, when we leave Quebec, we will have advanced our common cause, that we'll have in hand a renewed plan to strengthen democracy, create prosperity, and realize the human potential of the hemisphere, and that we will have the resolve, the means, and the resources to put our agreements into action. Finally, I am convinced that in 2 days, this grand familia that we are coming to know a little bit better each day will emerge even more united and with a greater feeling of solidarity. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Muchas gracias.
Prime Minister Jean Chrétien making opening remarks now at the opening ceremonies of the Summit of the Americas, and adding, beyond his text that his office had distributed, comments on the protesters out on the streets today, saying that violence and provocation is unacceptable and is contrary to the democratic views that we all hold dear. So, Mr. Chrétien, obviously, the demonstrations setting back by over an hour the opening ceremonies, but also causing a change in the Prime Minister's text. He said the violence does not represent the views of most of the people who've come here to protest. And he said peaceful protest is welcome and, in fact, is a democratic right that everyone at the meeting supports. But he said the violence and provocation by a small group that we saw this afternoon on the street, he said that is unacceptable. Now, the next speaker will be President Ricardo Lagos of Chile, and he will have remarks. Each of the speeches will be about the same length as Prime Minister Cachin's. There is the Chilean president, and we are listening live.
Mr. Prime Minister, fellow presidents, prime ministers, ladies and gentlemen, friends. 3 years ago, the hemispheric community met in Santiago, Chile, and it does so again today in Quebec, in this city where we have representatives that represent the wealth and diversity of our hemisphere. The extremes of our continent come together again so that democracy and economic reforms and integration will truly improve the lives of citizens in all of our countries. 3 years ago, we said that education was one of the key tasks for our region. But let's recognize it. The world has changed in these last 3 years. In these last 3 years, globalization has moved into the awareness of millions of people as a challenge we must face, as a discussion we must continue, as an unavoidable reality that brings us together today and has a greater sense of urgency than even 3 years ago. Next to education, in 1998, our country started negotiations for a free trade area of the Americas, which we hope will be concluded, we said then, by the year 2005. And we've made progress in these years. But maybe we've got to speed our gait, as we have to speed up our gait in education. We said 3 years ago that we hoped that by the year 2010, 100% of our children would have access to elementary education, quality education. 75% of our young people would have access to middle schools. And it's good to remember these commitments, to realize and know how much remains to be done. Friends, all. The countries represented in this room share an enormous continent. Our histories intertwine. But a community, even though it may nourish from its past, from its common geography, is built basically on the basis of a project, on something that will lead us to a shared future. And what makes this task doable is that we want to broach our future together. We want to have common dreams, a commitment for action. The objectives that unite us are democracy, respect for human rights, economic development, social justice. It's not a matter of living on the same hemisphere that gives meaning to our lives. It's the future that we will have to build together. And when we look at our objectives, we realize that the results obtained in the last 3 years in the region have been unequal. Yes, we've made progress in strengthening and recovering democracy and in ensuring respect for human rights. The Prime Minister of Canada said very well that those who are here because of the wills of...
We have also made sure, in a much better way,
that the sources
of growth are there more so than the sources of social justice.
And my conclusion is that our balance sheet is a positive one, but we need better programs for what still remains to be done. When it comes to economic growth, let's recognize it. We have followed a very tough road in the past. There were many distortions that needed to be corrected. We corrected them with courage. We understood that there were no shortcuts towards growth. And the best thing was to do things well, to achieve macroeconomic balances, to open up our economies, fiscal and monetary responsibility for the important things. Populism was something that existed before. To do things well in macroeconomics is our responsibility today. And in that area, there is no right and there's no left. There are those who do things properly and those who don't do them well. All of this has meant a tremendous effort for all of our economies. But this effort was worthwhile, and it will be worthwhile if we persevere. But it's also true that to continue with growth, we need better trade and more trade. And let's understand this clearly. Trade is a means, not an end. It's a tool for growth. The final objective is to grow more. But we want to grow so that with that growth we will be able to improve social justice and equality of opportunity for our people. And those who protest here, all I would like to tell them is that growth is the basis to improve social conditions. When people have jobs, have a better environment, better chances towards a better education and health, and trade is an important element in order to grow more. And that's why I would say today that in addition to understanding that we've learned to grow and we want to grow now with freer trade among us, we must also be able to be concerned over the fact that growth, as a result of growth, benefits even the most backward people in our countries. There will be no great victory and nobody will win unless there's greater social justice in our countries. We must have high aims. Democracy, yes. Respect for human rights, yes. Growth, yes. Social justice also. And if any one of these elements fails or does not achieve the results we hope for, we will not be up to the challenge we're facing. And that is why it seems to me that we are in the presence of a complex process, not a simple sequence of events. Social justice is not the fourth stage that happens after growth, and growth comes after you've achieved democracy. That's not the way things happen. Let's recognize modestly and with humility that we know very little about how to achieve greater social justice and equality of opportunities. And this is so because social justice is something which we often see more as a limitation rather than an objective. And partly because we've applied the same recipe in different societies. We have not respected our own identities. That sometimes forces us to find different roads, understanding that maybe by following those roads we can make progress. There's no single recipe and there's no single school of thought, and we've got to be able to move ahead on that basis. There's more than one solution. There's more than one solution to reduce the heterogeneity of our producers in our country. There's more than one solution to make joint efforts in the public and private spheres. There's more than one solution when it comes to the types of changes we want to carry out in our society. There's more than one solution to improve social services. There's more than one solution to improve and to strengthen the diversity of our families and our societies. One of our Nobel Prizes, Garcia Marquez, once said, and very rightly so, why is the originality that we're famous for in literature something that does not appear or come to the fore when we try to make social change? And that's why I believe that we must be as proud of reducing relative poverty among our countries and within our countries as we should be of our macroeconomic balances, of our balanced budgets, and of a good balance of payments. These are all substantial elements that we want to build up. It's not true that in order to grow we must set aside a better world and equality of opportunities for all, and we cannot achieve equal opportunities in a better world unless we're able to grow. And in order to grow, among other things, we must trade freely among us. In general terms, it's also easy to understand that the field of traditional redistributive policies has gotten smaller, has shrunk, and things have gotten more difficult. Rather than redistributing, we must be concerned with the distribution of opportunity in our countries. Opportunities for employment, for education, for health. And that's why it is so important that just as in this summit, we want to concentrate our efforts to see how we can meet the challenge of improving trade among us and make trade flow more easily. We must also take up other equally significant challenges. We must come up with policies that will promote greater competitiveness among us. Policies to support investments in human capital and physical capital. Policies that will improve our social policies. Policies in the field of education having to do with the use of the new communications and informations technologies. And therefore, it seems to me that we should develop better linkages here between all of the education institutions of our hemisphere. These are far-reaching objectives, but we're here to set goals for ourselves, and those goals should aim very, very high. We should have goals that will adequately meet the concerns of men and women in this hemisphere. And just as we have now established a link between freer trade that will bring us closer to speedier growth, then, and so will we have to establish objectives so that a speedier growth rate will make it possible for us to improve social cohesion in our countries. So let me think that it would be possible, just here in Quebec, at this summit, to face a challenge to improve trade between us, and my country has been a very eloquent spokesman in this regard. With the same energy and determination, we should say that at the next time, maybe 3 years from now, we should be able to come up with a social cohesion and harmony pact for the Americas. And just as we say today that we want free trade and we want to run our economies well and have a good democratic system, we should establish goals for our people that will make it possible for us to say, yes, there will be more social justice, yes, there will be greater opportunities for all. Because thanks to the fact that we can grow in democracy, we can dream in better education, better health, better housing, and better justice. Now, how do we develop a link between trade, growth, and social justice? That may be the greatest challenge. To explain to those who, by thinking that they yell a bit, they can be heard better, and they will be able to achieve equal opportunities. Equal opportunities are achieved as a result of the hard work of everyone. And so I would like to invite you in the next couple of days here in Quebec to achieve, I think, the success we will have in order to manage to have that free trade area of the Americas as a challenge for us all, that we also come up with new goals so that based on the growth that we will have greater social cohesion within our societies, and in that way we will strengthen our democracies and the respect for the rights of all of our citizens. We will then be increasing the harmony of our Americas in a serious, hard-working and dedicated way. The dedication we will already be showing during our deliberations that start here today. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister of Canada, for your invitation to us to come here to work together during the next couple of days. I'm sure that we will go back to our countries with a great sense of optimism about our achievements and with a conviction that